Okay, everyone, thanks for your patience. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sean Nealon. I'm the news editor in the Oregon State's University Relations and Marketing Office. Welcome to our media availability in response to the Pac-12 conference developments. I'm going to just let you know up front, we've had a few issues with power outages here on the Corvallis campus. Don't expect it will be an issue, but if there's a sudden disconnect, you'll know why. So hopefully we won't be dealing with that, but just a heads up there. So as you are aware, the ACC presidents approved membership invitations to Stanford and Cal today. So we have OSU President Jyoti Murthy and OSU Vice President, Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, Scott Barnes, here to share their reactions to that news. Couple other quick housekeeping things. So both the President and Athletic Director are going to share their reactions. There is a Q&A function here where we're asking you to submit your questions you have. We will get to questions after the initial reactions from both the president and athletic director. So please submit those questions, include your name and the outlet you're with. And then the final thing is we're recording this. So we will have a copy of the recording available as soon as we can after the session is over. So with that, we'll get started with President Murthy. Can you just please share your reaction to this news and how OSU is thinking about it this morning?
Sorry. Thank you, Sean. Good morning, everybody. So glad you could join us today. Let me start off by acknowledging that while the news is regrettable, it's not really unexpected. We are prepared for it and have been thinking about it these last few weeks. Throughout recent events, we've consistently said that the health and the well-being of our student athletes, preserving their ability to compete at the highest levels possible. These are Oregon State University's first priorities. And what this means is that we deeply value regional rivalries that have made Pac-12 great for so many years, and we are absolutely determined to preserve that legacy in some form. If there is a silver lining to the ACC president's vote, it is that it provides greater certainty and greater clarity about the road ahead. And so we continue to pursue all measures within our control to sustain the values of the Pac-12 and to create opportunities both inside and outside the conference.
Great, thank you, President Murthy. Now we'll turn it over to Vice President and Director of Athletics, Scott Barnes. Scott, can you talk about how OSU Athletics will be affected by this news and what you're telling student athletes today?
Yes, thank you, Sean, and thanks to all who are here today. As President Murthy had said, although we had hoped for a better outcome here, this outcome certainly was anticipated, and our plans relative to this consideration have been ongoing. You know, our coaches and our student athletes know the value of this wonderful university, and that's something that hasn't changed. We will continue to shout from the mountaintop how great this university is, the success that our student athletes and coaches enjoy as we move forward. You know, we're in a unique circumstance where we can't share a lot of information. It's a highly complex, negotiations are going on, and certainly everybody wants continued clarity. Know that President Murthy, myself, and many other campus leaders continue to work on the right path forward. Obviously, our market size eyeballs on televisions did not create the leverage needed to be in a different circumstance. That said, know this, that we will find the right place for our student athletes, the highest and best place for them to compete, as well as our coaches. know that we will be in a conference, that we will be continue to compete at the highest level nationally, which is certainly a goal of ours. So we will continue to work forward, and we're working 24/7 for our coaches, student athletes, and Beaver Nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Barnes. Now we're going to turn it over to some questions. Again, the Q&A function is open there. Please go ahead, fill in your questions, include your, again, your name and the outlet you're with so that we can keep track of those. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. The first question, for President Murthy, do you foresee a viable future for the Pac-12 now that Stanford and Cal are expected to join another conference?
Well, it is possible, but there's no question that it's much more complicated. The road ahead is much more arduous. We've been talking, OSU leaders have been convening our stakeholders. We're trying to figure out the best path forward while simultaneously pursuing other opportunities. So preserving the Pac-12 in some form, we believe, helps continue more than 100 years of sports history and tradition. So it's really important to us. So it's certainly a direction we're looking in, but of course, we're looking at all the options that are open to us at this point.
Thank you. Another question directed to President Murthy. Are you aware of discussions that other universities are having about their options?
Well, it's a little hard to say, what other universities are discussing. We're not privy to all the details of what they're doing. But of course, we are aware that realignment plays on. And so every school that's affected by realignment, I'm sure, is weighing all of its options. We're certainly aware of that landscape.
One more for President Murthy. Is there a timeline or deadline as to when you need to know a path?
Well, I mean, obviously sooner is better than later, but of course the landscape is pretty complicated. There are complex legal, financial issues around these things. And so for me, at least, we want to make the best decision possible. This is an important decision. And so while the clock is certainly ticking, my focus is on making the best decision possible for our university and for our conference.
Great. Okay, we're going to transition to Vice President Barnes. Have you received confirmation from other universities that they're interested in recreating the Pac-12?
Yes, we've had a number of conversations about what our path forward might look like in retaining the Pac-12, its potential assets and status, and those are items that certainly weigh into the decision of others to want to be part of a new Pac-12.
One more along those same lines. You guys mentioned looking into other options outside of preserving the Pac-12. What are some of the options you're pursuing or you can pursue or have been pursuing?
Our primary goal is to identify and understand the assets, the status piece that we have, and how we move forward. How we move forward could come in a number of ways in terms of realigning ourselves with the other conference members, other conferences. So specifically, to answer your question, first and foremost is to continue to take on and learn the complexities of what we may have to work with in terms of leverage, and then continue the conversations we're having with the various conferences on what that path forward will look like. And as JFE has said, the sooner we can get answers to some of these continued questions, the sooner we can continue to make decisions, and that's happening daily.
One more for Scott. What would your message be to Beaver fans who are frustrated with the process?
Yeah, this when you're working behind closed doors for the right reasons, negotiations and confidentiality and the complexities that have been discussed, it's hard to connect with all the information to Beaver Nation. So whether it's Beaver Nation, our student athletes, our coaches, we all want clarity on this situation. And so hang in there. We're working 24/7. And let me add that this is not an athletic specific issue. This is a university wide issue, and university wide leaders are assisting every single day. So know that we're rolling our sleeves up to get to the best outcome we can.
Excellent. Another one for Vice President Barnes. What do you expect the impact of conference realignment will be on OSU athletics?
Well, we need to absolutely face the reality that the revenues that we will be receiving will be less, and so our priority in that is what it's always been, and that's to retain a very high level, vibrant, holistic experience for our student athletes. We pride ourselves in that, the services that they receive, the competition they have. And so we will focus on that as we move forward. But make no mistake, as we continue the path forward, we know that revenues will be less. How much less? Not certain yet. Continue to unpack that and understand that and plan for it.
Sort of related to that, what does the realignment mean for non-revenue generating sports? And are there any discussions of sports being cut or their funding being cut?
Yeah, absolutely not. We retain 16 NCAA championship sports and men's rowing as well. And we are committed to maintaining those sports as we think about a path forward in conference alignment, whatever that may be. We are thinking about every single sport and how they align with the new members of a conference that we develop as an example. So each of our sports will have a home, and each of our sports will continue to flourish in the next wave of our conference relationship.
Great. Let's move on. A couple of questions for President Murthy. Fans have voiced their frustration about the university not being one of the first teams to make a move to another conference. Is there any regret of not finding a solution to realignment earlier in the process, especially since OSU is now one of two teams remaining in the conference?
I understand the frustration, and of course, I've felt it myself many times. But I will tell you this, our options are centrally tied to being in a small town and not being able to deliver the audience, the TV audiences that these big media contracts require. And that's a fact of our geographic location. It is not easily changed. And the same thing applies, of course, to other small schools, including Washington State in Pullman. And that's a frustration I've shared. But it's not easily solved, as I said. And so there aren't easy options for us to simply hop from conference to conference, even if we were willing to simply blow the Pac-12 up, which I've never been willing to do. All right. So we continue to look for options that work for us, where the needs of our student athletes are taken care of, where our athletic and academic values align, and where we can play at the national level and be visible. But jumping from a conference was never the first option. Making the conference work was always where my heart and my mind lay. And I'm sorry that a top 20 football team ends up where we are because of the focus on media rights and media valuations.
Another one for President Murthy. What role, if any, has being in a prestigious prestigious conference played in OSU's academic growth? And do you foresee any effects on student enrollment amidst this new situation?
Look, I've got to believe that our academic standing stands in its own right. All of you who've been following the news on OSU know that we're doing phenomenally well, right? Just this last week, we announced research funding of $480 million, $500 million of funding that's come in. We've been growing anywhere between 20 to 30% a year in our research funding. Our federal research funding last year went up by 45%. So this is a school that's doing phenomenally well in all kinds of ways. And I absolutely expect that that focus will continue, all right? And I don't see how anyone can ignore this level of performance, regardless of conference realignment. So no, I think we will speak loud and clear about how wonderful a place OSU is, and that will absolutely continue. Regarding student enrollment, we've seen significant growth in student enrollment, for almost a decade now, and this year is no exception. So far, we've not seen any effect. We will, of course, be keeping an eye on student enrollment numbers and taking the actions that we need to take. But our strength, both on the teaching area, teaching directions, as well as research remain, and our Oregon-wide footprint through our land grant mission remains. None of that changes.
Let's pivot back to Vice President Barnes. Does the commitment to regional rivalries indicate a willingness to continue competing against Oregon?
We're going to continue to look at our path forward, and that includes what schedules will look like, not just in football, but in every sport. Yes, regional rivalries and regionality of the footprint we're in is important because it's a health and well-being component for our student athletes. So we will continue to look and see what our options are. Really too early to tell exactly, given the status of where we sit with scheduling. So yet to be determined.
A couple more for Vice President Barnes. What sort of responses are you hearing from student athletes and what they want to see with conference realignment? Do they want to stay in the Pac-12 or leave to another conference? And if so, which conferences have they expressed interest in?
We continue to have really good dialogue with our student athletes, including our SAC, Student Athlete Advisory Council. They're the leaders there. And the two things that probably surfaced most in our conversations as we talk to them, one is the notion of competing at the highest level that we can compete at. Secondly, and not necessarily in ranking, but the second item is not having to travel across the country to play. That is an impact on their experience, perhaps their physical and mental well-being as well, mental health. So those two things, both competing at the highest level and that notion of regionality again, not traveling across the country, were important to them, and certainly as it relates to informing any specific conference wishes, they haven't expressed that. Only those two items that are priorities.
And sort of a follow-up to that, are you worried about student athletes deciding to transfer due to the uncertainty of the 2024-25 season?
You know, we can go back to last summer and look at this whole past year when this was front and center. Conference realignment has been front and center. And in fact, as late as the day that all of this started to unravel, that fateful Friday, we had two of our highest ranked volleyball recruits on this campus. A week later, they verbally committed. Why? Because of this place. Now, let me say straight up that conference alignment and conferences. The conference that we participate in is really important to our recruits, but it is not the most important thing. This place, this special place, the culture we've built, the facilities we have, the coaches that lead our programs, and the comfort, feeling, and fit our recruits have for this place and our student athletes have for this place haven't left. So are we concerned? Yeah, we're concerned, but we also look at the track record and the fact that overall we have less transfers than most, and we continue to lean in to what's special in this place, and we lean in to, in fact, how student athletes, prospective student athletes, and current student athletes are making those decisions to both come or stay. And it's as much or more about the culture, the fit, the feel, the leadership, the people that walk the hallways than it is the conference.
One more question for Vice President Barnes. How have your conversations been with Jonathan Smith throughout this process?
Jonathan Smith, like all of our coaches right now, are locked in. They are. Jonathan is getting ready for to kick off against San Jose State, as his team is, and so many ways the team, those student athletes, follow their leader in their leader's mentality and sort of countenance around the issue. And he is focused on having an excellent season, high expectations, incredible enthusiasm for this football program specifically. And he and our student athletes are 100% focused on that.
Okay, let's pivot back to President Murthy. Are student and student athlete voices being considered throughout this process?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've always said that students and student athletes are front and center in our decision making. And we've been talking to student leadership, athletic student leadership constantly. We'll be talking to them on a regular basis, and you should expect two-way conversations. I mean, we hear from them, we let them know what's going on, and absolutely, they're at the heart of our decision making.
Back to Vice President Barnes. Do we have any concerns about the recent Research Stadium remodel being impacted by the realignment?
You know what's special about Research Stadium? We are so excited to show the world what so many folks have contributed to build a state-of-the-art, first-class stadium that is year-round use. Specifically to the question, one of the fundamental goals in this project was to have a funding model that was more than sustainable. And I say that because with over 100 million in gifts and the multitude of new revenue streams, wherever we land, whatever it looks like, not only will we cover the annual debt service on this, but we will create additional revenue for all 17 programs. And so this serves as sort of a guiding light in this storm in terms of our ability to sustain and ultimately grow.
Back to President Murthy. Has OSU been considering other options besides rebuilding the Pac-12, like joining the Mountain West or partnering the Pac-12 with another conference?
Yeah, absolutely, we have. And we've got a lot of very experienced people giving us advice, and we've been consulting with them on a regular basis. Yeah, absolutely. Certainly our connection to Pac-12 is deep. I mean, we're one of the charter members of the Pac-12, and so we're deeply connected to it, aware of its reputation and its reach. And so, which is why we keep saying that it's so important to consider it as one of the directions we should take seriously. But yeah, absolutely. We've been having great conversations with a number of conferences and looking at the various forms in which we can connect with them. So there's a lot of creative thinking going on. And so we'll keep you posted. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Quick update here. So we're getting tight on time, getting near our 10:30 window. So if you have any last minute questions, put them in the Q&A, please. We'll probably get to one or two more before wrapping it up. But again, we'll have a recording available for people after the fact. So I've got another question for Vice President Barnes. Have you received confirmation from other universities that they are interested in recreating the Pac-12?
We aren't in a position for absolute confirmation, but certainly the dialogue we have represents a great path forward.
Let's do maybe one or two more questions here. Pivot back to President Murthy. When can we expect an answer about what is happening next? I mean, we sort of covered this earlier, but can you offer a rough estimate for when Oregon State will commit to a conference?
I would say fairly soon, weeks rather than months, and certainly not years. We do have to decide where we're going just because of scheduling and other, other pressures. So no, you won't have to wait very long. But as I've said before, for me, I certainly keep the speed issue in mind, but making the right decision is really the biggest thing. This is a very, very important decision, and and its effects will play out for years ahead. And so we're thinking very carefully, not just in regarding the 2024-25 season, but looking at our options as this whole very complex landscape evolves. So we're keeping both timescales in our minds as we make these decisions. So you'll hear soon, but as I said, making the right decision is the most important thing.
Okay. So one final question for President Murthy. What are the conversations like with Washington State University?
We're wonderfully aligned. President Schultz has been just a terrific partner in this. We're closely connected. We talk very often. Our interests are aligned, both athletically and academically. And so I'm very, very happy to have them as a partner.
Great. Well, thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to wrap it up there. Like I said, we're going to have a recording available as soon as possible. I will relay that to all the reporters we've reached out to. If you didn't receive an email from me directly, feel free to email me and ask for that recording. It's just sean.nealon@oregonstate.edu, and I can get that to you. Thanks for joining us so much. Like I said, we will follow up with that recording.